Hi Taylor and Cody. So I'm making my video for Jackson to cover from 4 months to 9 months. Hopefully this helps. Excuse my appearance, no makeup, glasses, junk clothes on, and my wonderful assistant doll Lucy. So first of all, I'm just going to review a couple things in the Bayley scales. That's that developmental test that I would usually start testing Jackson on when he was 3 months. But I'm just going to review a couple things in each section that you guys in your mind can be like, wow, he's already doing that. And I'm starting to look at the 4-month level skills right now that I'm going to read off. When I would be testing Jackson, he's coming up to 4 months, I'd start at 3 months and I'd go as far until he really starts failing quite a bit, even if that's into the 6, 7, 8-month level. I will pass until he starts failing several in a row. Then I know I've reached my basal and my ceiling for him. So I'm going to read off just a couple things that start at the 4-month level, since he's coming up on 4 months, just to show you how good he's doing. So in cognitive, I'd be looking at, does he become excited when you guys are in his visual field? Does he react to a disappearance of face? So we know he reacts when you're in his face, but at 4 months, which is coming up for him, he should also react when you get out of his face without making noise. So you might be holding him, and my wonderful doll Lucy, and chit-chatting and playing, and then just subtly get out of the visual field and see if you notice a change in his appearance, his breathing, that type of thing. Does he shift his attention? He's listening to you while you're holding him, and he hears Cody walk in the door or the dog bark. Does he shift his attention over to that other sound? These are all in the cognitive realm. Does he show a visual preference? So pick 2 rattles that you know in general you use a lot, one you don't use that much. Put it in his field, again, without making a lot of noise, just holding it there, taking it away, holding the other one, taking it away, and then bring both into his visual field. Does he sort of look at both but goes towards the one that you know he likes or has seen quite a bit? So visual preference starts coming in. Does he habituate to sound? So in our testing, I am behind the child and I ring a little bell. You can click your fingers. Does he look at it for a minute, but then sort of like, okay, I'm bored by that? So looking at, does he habituate to sound? And then 2 more, does he prefer something novel briefly? So maybe you've got a book next to you and you open a page and you put it in his visual field. Is he like, wow, I'm not going to look at mom now, I'm going to look at that for a second. That's another thing that you'd see for 4.5 months. And lastly, the cognitive one, is he starting to grasp things and wanting to go towards his mouth for exploration? Not so much gnawing on his own hand or sucking his thumb, but beginning to explore an object that you've put in his hand by mouthing, and you're realizing he's calm, he's looking at it, he's not hungry, he's not trying to calm himself, he's just sort of exploring that object. So that's the cognitive things. Language, there's 2 areas, receptive and expressive. Receptive is what does he understand? Expressive, what sounds is he making? So 4 months that I'm talking about, you'd start to see, number 1, he calms just with you speaking to him. He's in the chair on the floor, he's upset, and you're able to come down to him and say, it's okay, buddy, you're okay. Do you notice even before you touch or pick him up, does he start to calm? Does he react to sounds in the environment, which we know he does? Does he respond to a person's voice? So maybe you're not in his visual field, but he's just looking at his mobile, hanging out, and you, without him seeing you, say, hi, Jackson. Does he turn and respond to just hearing sound of someone's voice? Does he turn his head towards sound? And that's an important thing. Maybe I'll ring the bell in my test, and they'll turn a little bit, ring the bell on the other side. So he's understanding something's happening in his environment. Does he start to discriminate sounds? Maybe you've got a squeaky toy and an obnoxious bell or clicking of your fingers. Does he start to turn towards the one that's more pleasurable rather than that obnoxious one? And lastly, 2 more. Does he start to really calm or enjoy sound in general? He likes the sound of music. He likes a video being played. You notice he's in his crib, he's upset, and you just put music on. Is that enough that he's interested and sustains himself? And lastly, as getting into 4, 4.5, 5 months, does he actually respond to his name? So that's a tricky one. You can say Jackson, but you can also say with the same intonation of your voice, Taylor. Is he responding because the intonation, Or is he actually hearing Jackson versus Cody or Jackson versus Taylor based on the same intonation? Sometimes kids turn and parents will tell me, oh, they're responding to their voice. But when I do it, they're really just responding to that sing-songy intonation that you say it. Okay? So expressive, what sounds is he making? I'd be looking at social smile, which we've seen, beginning to laugh, which we've seen, vocalizing mood, not just crying, but other times he's excited, you notice, ah, and versus he's starting to get mad, you get this, so vocalizing different moods. And different nasal sounds should start coming in. You hear sort of a throaty sound coming through his nose, or that type of thing. And then social laugh, again, we've seen that, vocalizing social laugh. And then start listening for different vowel sounds. So those vowel sounds come in when he's just quiet jabbering. You're talking back and forth. He's imitating sound. Ooh, different vowels should start coming in. At about 4.5, 5, 6 months, you get at least 2, possibly 3 vowels that you know are consistent that he uses. And does he also use vocalization to get attention now? Not just crying, we know that one, but is mom or dad, you guys cooking in the kitchen, he wants some attention, so he's going, that type of thing. And again, all those things are things that I'd be testing, but things you can work on with him. And then we get into the fine motor, and lastly, I'll do the gross motor, which I can show you more. But fine motor, he should be doing hand to mouth quite a bit already, and I've seen that with him. Can you give him something small, like a little infant ring, circle, something like that, a rattle that has a long handle, and can he actually retain that in his hand for about 3 to 5 seconds? A lot of times kids hold it and they drop it, or they hold it and they have to press it on their face to keep it there, or on their arm. Can he actually hold it in his hand away from anything else for 3 to 5 seconds? We know he follows and tracks laterally, and I know he follows and tracks horizontally. Now he should start tracking, again, mostly on his back, when you've got him on his back, circular. Nice and slow. Can he look at something you're holding and slowly track it circular in 2 directions? That should be coming in. Will he actually follow? When I do it, I hold the ring up and I just circular it above him, something like that. Just see if that works. If you're sitting, you're holding him, and you roll something across the table, a little ball, tennis ball. Will he actually track something when he's sitting up, coming across the table? Coming across the table. And then maybe it plops on the ground. So is he starting to track in an upright seated position something that's rolling across the table? And then lastly, for fine motor, are you starting to notice the hands are more open than they're closed? So that comes from being on his tummy a lot, from playing with objects, touching things, but you should feel like even at rest, his hands are starting to be a little more open than they are loosely closed. And then gross motor, I'll read that real quick. Controls his head upright when you're holding him for about 15 seconds. I know he does that. Holds his head in midline when you're holding him. I know he can do that. When you're upright and you're carrying him around, can he hold his own head? And we know he's doing that very well. When he's on his tummy, does he lift his head 30 degrees? He should be getting closer to 30, possibly even 45 degrees, that he can lift his head up from his tummy. Okay? And then is he starting to right his head? You're holding him, and maybe you take him off center, left or right. Is he starting to be able to right that head a little bit and bring it back to midline? Not so good going backward and forward, but left to right, he should start really righting that head pretty good. Okay. He should be, when you're sitting him, he sits with support. When you give him support, you're holding him, and you're holding him on his belly, and you feel like he's starting to sort of sit with support when he's held with his belly. For the legs, I tend to do crisscross a lot, crisscross applesauce. That's better. Okay. If he needs more support, you can bring his legs out longer. That gives him a bigger base of support, or you can hold higher on his trunk. But at this age, when you're holding him, does he sort of almost feel like you can let go just a little bit? And when you're doing that type of thing, I'll show you in a minute, but make sure when he's sitting, you've got him back. So he's sitting on his sick bones. He's not sitting on the back of his pelvis. You have to actually pull him back a little bit. Sometimes I just reach in their belly and pull it back so he's sitting like that. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a minute, check my... Sorry about all the pauses in the camera on the last one, but most of that was talking and working through the Bailey. Let me show you on this part, the gross motor stuff. So you should feel very comfortable that Jackson will spend lots of time on his tummy. I don't have a lot of infant toys, so I'm just going to use something bright colored that I do have here. So with toys in front of him, that really, he now will stay on his tummy, maybe with you down there and your face is right there for a good 5 minutes rather than just 30 seconds. If you're not there at 5 minutes yet, keep working on it. You might need to be down there more with him. You might need to start on your chest and then put him down, or keep changing the toys. But you should feel like you can get a good 5 minutes of him awake time on his tummy. Okay? If he's not, again, another option to get him more used to his tummy over and over is every diaper change that you do during the day, when you're done, roll him to his tummy for a second and pick him up that way so he's used to tummy. And carry him around the house a little bit more on his tummy. Obviously, my hand is holding his head, but a lot more tummy time when you're carrying him, but also every diaper change, if you roll him to his tummy and just even let him stay there for a minute and then pick him up, more and more used to his tummy. Okay? At this point, he should be also starting to spend a lot of awake time on his side. Get him off his back as much as possible. When you're busy and you're cooking or something's going on, he can play on his back and look at the mobile and all that. But get him on left side and right side. How I prefer to do it is I got him on a blanket. The toy might be over in front of his visual field, but then I use a rolled towel, such as this one. Roll it up like that, and I place it under the blanket that he's lying on. And I really roll him almost to tummy, get that roll behind him, and then roll him back. And that way, he can't go anywhere. He can go forward if he wants onto his tummy, but he's going to pretty much be on his side. If you feel like he wiggles out of it, you can actually even take that roll between his legs, and that tends to keep them there a little bit more. Or use a little towel to go over his hips and tuck it under him, as well as back here, so he maintains on his side. But he should be starting to play on his side a lot. Take the mobile and maybe lie it down, put a radio over here, toys, books, anything you can. But make sure, again, equal time, left side and right side. And then back to tummy again. When you have time and you can be right there, take that same towel. This time, roll it up thicker. And he should really be starting now to spend time where the arms are over a thick bolster. And by the way, this could be your thigh as well. I sometimes, when I'm working with kids, I use my thigh. So it could be your thigh. That way I get a little bit more control and I can help rock them with my leg. And I can, so when you're able to be there, use your thigh if you want. But basically, over or roll, hands forward so they're on the ground, something right there, crinkly or whatever that he can touch and feel. And you can start with legs flat, but starting to tuck those legs up and have him do some rolling where he's going back on his butt. He's starting to move that movement in his trunk, anterior and posterior, and his hands are starting to get, when you do that, his hands are starting to get some pressure through him and back. Pressure through him and back. So instead of just head control, he's really working on his whole back control, but with legs flexed. In prep, eventually, with some really good rolling, but it also preps for crawling and creeping. So, you know, you can be having a sing-song, you can just be doing row, row, row your boat, just sounds, whatever you want, but you're doing a little bit of up and down, but also just some static play, just letting him touch something down here, okay? I use my fingers, move it, and again, you can use your leg as well for this. I would be doing a lot of carrying him with him forward, and now moving towards legs are bent over your arm. We were before doing a lot of it this way, which you still can, but make sure you're doing both ways. This time, the left leg's up, but maybe the next time, the right leg's up. But start putting him even just in this position where the legs are relaxed and he's tucked into you. Okay? On the floor sitting, he should be starting to do a lot of floor sitting where maybe whatever he wants here is elevated a little bit on a little pillow or something. This is a nice height because it's got actually a base to it already. Hands can be on something rather than straight to the floor. That's going to be too abrupt. but his hand's able to touch something up here. Again, sometimes I even use my foot, and I'll put the toy on my foot to do it, but something in front of him where he can put hands up here, you're holding him, legs are crisscross, and he's starting to get an idea of sitting. It'll be really brief. Hold him as high as he needs. Under his armpit is usually where I start. As he gets stronger, you can move your hands down a little bit more towards the hips. But whatever you're doing in sitting, super important, as I mentioned in the last one, that he's not sitting on the back of his back and resting here, that you reach under his diaper, pull him back so he's sitting right on the base of those sit bones, your SITs underneath there. So he's not doing this type of thing. He's right in the midline. And he's going to want to, as he gets mad, kick back. But you're trying to keep him flexed forward, sitting right on the base of that, legs in. If legs in is too hard, you can extend those legs, and it gives him a little bit more of a base of support. But you know, if you can get used to him being this way, crisscross, that's best. You don't need to work on anything where one leg's one way and one's the other way. No, you're doing everything up here or there, okay? And then lastly, you can also start doing some over your leg, where his feet are on the ground, pull them way back, more than 90 degrees at the knee, pull him way back. Don't let him stand, but just hold him where he wants. And maybe, again, he's playing with your lap, he's looking at something fun, and you can do a little bit of side to side here, but he's starting to work on sitting on your thigh. Again, not back here, he's on those sit bones. You're making sure he's tilted forward a little bit. That pelvis is in an anterior tilt. All right, hope that helps. I apologize for the camera pausing so much. I know you can see me, but I can tell that it just started pausing again. So let's start with this, and then I'll make another one once I can figure out my camera to cover a little bit closer to the 6, 7, 8, 9 month level, okay? Thanks. Bye. Okay, I'm going to end this with just a couple of things that you guys should be reminded not to do with Jackson. So make sure he's not spending most of his awake time on his back. So if I was to ask you, what's his day like? And you described his day, but there was a lot of awake time lying on his back. At this age, you really don't want that. He could be sitting up in a swing. He could be in your arms. He could be lying on his side. He could be doing tummy time, lots of different positions. Make sure when you put him to sleep, he's on his back still, as you know, back to sleep, but the crib is not oriented where he always has his head to the right, because you guys are on that side, or to the left, because he sees the window. Again, make sure that you're sort of making sure that he has an opportunity to have his head to the right when he's sleeping as equally as to the left, okay? This age, he's going to start wanting to stand a little bit more, with support, obviously. Minimize a lot of that weight bearing through long legs, through his legs being stiff and strong. If he's just bouncing a little on his legs with your lap, that's fine. He's bending his knees, he's flexing and extending, that's okay. And little bits are fine. But no static standing where he's just starting to really want to rigid his legs up. Minimize that. And along with that, no baby walkers, any devices that put him in standing. Okay? And then he should not get used to one position that he's happiest in. If you're like, boy, he loves the swing, so we use that all the time. Try to move those things around. Lastly, just remind yourself over and over again, it seems like the last generation of children are really hooked on iPhones. We all show family and FaceTime and all that, but minimize that use of the iPhone when you're on it. It would be great if he doesn't see you on it, as far as, video and looking at pictures or a movie or checking the news out. Try to minimize the use of TV, iPad, iPhone for now in his field. Hope that helps. Yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe the next one. Thanks, guys.